Hello, guys. Good to see you back. Hi, Stella. First one here. So, just recapping what we discussed so far. We've discussed. Hi, Charlie. Good to see you. We've discussed how the nightlife economy is a great way of networking and spurring personal growth. We've touched upon intersectionality somewhat, and we've also touched upon other issues surrounding a little bit about COVID, but not enough, which we will do quite soon. Good to see that you're all fighting back in. Continue fighting back in until Sean comes. What are your best or favorite memories of being out and about? Why don't you type them in? We can have a little conversation between ourselves before George comes back. Additionally, something that we haven't discussed as much is that galleries have, piggybacking off the nightclub economy, always also been conduits for the same kind of discussions surrounding, or the same kind of synergies surrounding meeting people and fostering community. So, in this segment, we're probably going to speak a little bit more about how COVID has impacted the cultural sector, specifically how COVID is interacting with or augmenting our relationships with the nightlife. As you may know, many of the still waiting for Sean. Well, mention one of them. One of your moments. If there's too many to mention, you could always mention one. Just waiting for him to come back. Where's Sean? That was a good round of conversations. I hope he's not forgotten. Scotch opening night. How was that? Tell me about it. It doesn't allow you to type very much in. I'm going to use my iPad to chase down Sean. Mr. Alto, where are you? Don't run away. Just typing in, don't leave. Okay, it was amazing. I'd been in London 2 years, no idea of what I was getting into, but we had Jack White do the opening as well as the other artist. It was a real eye-opener into real nightlife. Thank you for sharing that experience. Sean's just joined back. Let me recognize Sean.
Back again.
Back again!
Back
Woo!
again. Just sending invites to everyone.
do send invites.
Yeah, I actually want to hear some other people's opinions as well as these guys as well.
No, I've started like asking people what their sort of best experiences of nightlife is,
Yeah, I do
and
want to hear more stories of people in nightlife, actually.
we should actually have like a nightlife conversation. Oh, an ode
Absolutely,
to nightlife or something like that.
absolutely, absolutely.
But where did we leave off? We left off
Oh,
talking
you
about
tell
this.
me.
Sorry,
I said, you tell me.
we left discussing influences.
Yes, yes, the new form of modern day influencing. Um,
Mm.
mm, 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 mm,
Mm.
Yeah, I would say a lot of the people that I wanted to uh, integrate in and get to know, they were influencers. They were the friends of, Vivian Westwood, and do you know what I mean? They were just really
Yeah,
interesting people that had different lives to where my social living point was coming from.
that's a really important point because there is no better way than getting to meet someone on the dance floor.
Yeah, quite literally. Quite literally.
Because
It's a transfer, it's that transference of energy. Do you know what I mean?
it's one of the best ways of meeting someone. But
Yeah.
moving on,
By the way, you asked what the book that I was reading. There you
yeah,
are. It's this one. The Fortunes of Africa.
amazing.
That's what I'm reading currently.
I will post it afterwards.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one.
I'll get everyone to say something about it afterwards.
Cool.
Just thinking about let's think about what nightlife might come out like after COVID.
hmm Okay, so let's look at the facts. Currently, we have track and tracing. Currently, we have an app as to where you need to be registered before you can enter. Currently, there's screening. At the beginning of COVID-19, we knew that that was going to be needed for the hospitality industry to exist in
Survive.
any kind of capacity. Absolutely. Um, ugh. Before we even touch upon the cultural fascism of it all, I think it's important that we address the fact that hospitality is only equates to 4% of the whole UK GDP. So I'm sure the councillor, and though I'm not a chancellor, but I'm sure the chancellor is looking and saying, well, this 4% can
Can die.
shift. It could not die because they will never. People love to drink. People love to party. That will never happen. That will never not happen. Um, it's going to exist in different and varying ways. Like I said, it's probably going to exist more in immersive experiences. The curfew is bullshit and needs to be ended.
Wait,
The curfew is bullshit.
wait.
It's infuriating.
I don't think the virus knows it's 10 o'clock. The body,
Girl,
the body doesn't really at 10 o'clock decide I'm going to become more virulent.
here's the thing. I understand the idea of. Okay, I think people think like the government think people are stupid. Like they're not just going to shift their habits. Do you know what I mean? Because that's all
People
that's
just
is
drink
going to happen.
earlier.
It's just going to be a shift of habit. Everyone's going to drink earlier. Brunches are now going to be the sellout event.
Mm.
So day drinking and brunching will be the sellout thing, which is obviously why they've now to ensure that it can only be six people at a particular time with an outside. Like the regulations and the regulatory
Framework.
board on and the framework behind that is going to be even more intense. Let alone the fact that it's a cashless society. Before we deal with all of that, before we even get into all of that, you're asking me your first question is what's the shift and how is it going to be? And I
Mm.
think the shift, like we've always said, is that we just create innovative events. And it's cute how the innovation tried to start off with online events and people socially distancing and partying from home, which is, let's face it, not going to happen, especially within younger generations.
Mm.
Um, as to where it's going to end up now, it's just going to be a lot more. Okay, okay, so the transitional period is going to be a lot more illegal activity, right?
Oh yeah,
And then when people start to get those £1,000 fines and £3,000 fines and £10,000 fines,
it'll become a
it will
state
then,
thing.
yeah, it will then shift into high underground events. And then through those high underground events will come a political conversation of readdressing this cultural social fascism that we're dealing with right now. That's what I see happening. Think about it. It's like
For those of us not in the know, explain cultural fascism.
cultural fascism is when a your entire identity is being controlled. They are controlling how you move, how you speak, how you socialize, everything. That's what cultural fascism is. It's the intended, doctrinated control of identity and self-identity building.
Mm.
That's what I see cultural fascism as.
You're not the only one to have said this, because I was reading recently the government wants to stop teachers using non-capitalist friendly material in schools. Should they be regulating on that?
The whole school system stresses me out in itself because I don't understand as to why there's a hierarchy on education, especially when it's free. The fact that we have league boards for schools, the fact that we are they say that the teachers and the school board and the headmaster are in charge of implementing what cultural conversations that we have when we're talking about Black history, when we're talking about the Black curriculum, when we're talking about British heritage as opposed to imperialism and colonialism.
Mm.
Those conversations, that's a whole nother. That's a left turn, Eduardo. That's a left turn. When it comes to schools and those kind of environments, and in helping, if we're trying to build characters as opposed to sociopaths and psychopaths that we seem to be doing a lot of the time.
We seem to like the sociopaths and psychopaths because we've elected a whole cabinet of social psychopaths who are finding it very hard to justify their own actions currently
Yeah,
with
yeah,
the amount of scrutiny they're under. But because their education doesn't allow them to say mea culpa, I'm
yeah.
sorry, or even say it in English, for one.
Yeah, I think what is really jarring is that everyone is now feeling really sensitive to the hypocrisy of it all.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the more we continue, but then again, that's me talking from an advantage point of being Black, queer, and in London. Do you know what I mean? So my worldview is going to be very different to somebody who is in Sheffield and
But
coming from a
I think there's
different
a
type of
certain
place.
amount. I think we spend a lot of time talking within our silos,
Yeah,
as our little bubbles a lot
yeah,
of the time. But
yeah,
our experiences are more universal than we think.
yeah. I agree. I agree. I do feel like there is commonality within lived experience. Um, but when you're talking about the intersections of race, class, misogyny, wealth, and nightlife, not so much.
Because it is, I think London to an extent has really got more resources because there's more people.
It's a cultural
Great,
hub. It's a
there's greater
financial cultural
synergies.
hub.
There's greater
Yeah,
synergies to put it mildly.
yeah.
What would be your ideal nightlife scene, ecology, and what would be your
Hmm.
nightmare at the end of COVID?
How about this? I'll give you two examples that I've lived through, and then I will give you two examples post-COVID of what would be jarring. Because for me to speak on that point, you need to understand that I refuse to be a guinea pig. Do you know what I mean? I refuse to be. I've worked too long and too hard, to trial me. I don't need to trial myself anymore. I don't need to trial this industry anymore. Do you know what I mean? So yeah. So from a previous experience, my worst nightmare is chasing invoices. I don't have the time or the patience for it because if you try to complain about it
You
and you
get
try to put the
snapped.
venue on blast, yeah, you get told
Good to know.
as to how unprofessional you are and you shouldn't be posting up this business out here and about like however how else do you chase money without posting it up?
That's very true.
So that was very infuriating because what a lot of people were doing, especially when they were the ones who were having deficits within their business, were trying to make it seem like my financial deficit
Was
should
no problem.
exactly is a me problem when it's actually money that you owe me that you have chose to not pay. You're making a
Well,
very solid choice to
I
not pay it.
just I have one word: small claims court.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You can always, but that's the thing. That's when you have contracts, and it took me a
If you don't
very
have a
long time,
contract
especially for
and you just have to invoice, then they can pretend that they don't owe you anything.
exactly.
Damn.
Exactly. So my initial kind of jar. I think the greatest time that I had was it was being able to go and work within spaces that I socially and culturally wouldn't expect myself to be in,
Yeah.
and thriving in them. That was like a really cool thing to be able to host a dinner for Vivian Westwood. Like, who am I? Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
That was cool.
Who are
Those
you?
when it ended up in yeah, but ended up in rooms that you just didn't expect to be in.
Yeah.
It's always a so post COVID. Oh, what would I hate? I would hate to have to be one of the initial promoters who are trying to create those intertwining of subcultures into a particular space. I would hate to have to be the first person to do that. I think I've done too much to actually have to be one of the first to try it out. To be honest, in my opinion.
Interesting. I wanted to point you back to a statement that you made earlier
Hmm.
on allowing marginalized people to set the vibe.
Mm,
Would you want to
mm,
speak
mm.
to that a little bit more?
Okay, so the only way my nights could actually work were having intersectional societies, marginalized groups, and people who were belong to those kind of venues all being in one space. The nights where it didn't matter who you were or what you earned or where you came from. None of that mattered. It was just, are you cool? Are you a vibe?
Mm-hmm.
Do you aesthetically fit in? Which that's important as well. I'm not gonna act like it didn't. Um, and does it make sense? And I think what a large part as to why I got away with doing that in some of the places that I did was because the staff, and we spoke about this, a lot of the time it was the staff that allowed me to do that because they were like, actually, yeah, we want a night out in a place like this that we could also come to,
What about us?
literally. And I think that's why a large part, because I'm damn near sure corporate would never have allowed half the events that I did to go through. It was usually the manager, assistant manager, event manager, whoever I was speaking to or dealing with at the time, that was like, yeah, 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 that sounds sick.
Let's do it.
Mm,
Let's talk about relationships with actual venues.
hmm
Spoken about relationships with, to an extent, between us and
hmm
um, and other sort of creatives within the space, but we
hmm
haven't talked about the elephant in the room. Relationships between us and the venues. You've spoken a little bit about invoicing,
Yeah,
but let's talk about the more professional side of it.
yeah.
Give us
Okay,
your first
so
ideas on that, and then we can break it down a little bit.
ultimately, I think in any dealings that I had with venues and dealing directly with owners or directors, that always came because of the social currency. Do you know what I mean? It was working with the people that I was working with at the time that they wanted to. they were opening up a venue and they needed that energy, they needed that aesthetic, they needed those kind of people within that room because they were the social climbers, they were the influencers, they were the people at that time. And I find through creating events that actually were successful allowed them to be like, okay, you're consistent with what you're doing. So there was a bit of trust there. Now working into that and trying to weave into that as a professional environment, I was working as a freelancer for a very large time, and then trying to work in that as an event manager myself. It's very different. It was very different. And you met me, remember, at library as an event manager, trying to run 4 different simultaneous events and programs all at once.
It's crazy.
Mm.
Business is social currency. Do you want to speak more about that, Rita Gale?
Yeah, ask us the question, Rita.
If you have a question on that, because lots of people think that nightlife comes about out of thin air, but there really isn't any sort of business acronym behind it.
Yeah, well, it's all business. It's all understanding what your top line is. Do you know what I mean? What your bottom line is.
I still don't know what a net /
gross profit
means. Girl, I'm still out here trying to work out if I'm getting paid more money.
Honey, when you have to do broadcasting and forecasting sheets, you'll get there.
Okay.
Absolutely, Charlie. Thank you, babes. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Social currency, you want it broken down a little bit more?
Okay. So the social currency is, firstly, it's dependent on what you're trading with. That's the first thing.
Yep.
That's the first question, is what you're trading in, and that is what industry are you in? And then it's adding to the layers of what social hierarchy you're looking towards. If it's something that you care for.
That you stand
is it why are you doing all of this networking for? Sorry, say again?
It's a pecking order, like chickens.
Actually, I'm going to ask you. Social currency. What does it mean to you?
Social currency.
Oh, nice.
What do you mean?
So a large part of what I'm doing in nightlife is working, having a lot of people who needed and wanted social currency. They were either trying to get up on a social ladder by being in a particular room. That was the room at the time. You know what I mean? That was filled with people within that ecosystem, people who they wanted to network with, people who they wanted to be friends with, and people who they wanted to get to know, etc. That's the building in my social currency is trying to have the social currency to be able to trade in whatever industry that you're trying to be in.
Oh, so right.
Do you know? Does I'm making any sense? Yeah, basically.
It's probably resume.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Yeah, social currency is like when you do something, right? Depending on how big it is, say what maximum social currency would be like, dude.
You've got a point system, guys.
Guys, I really enjoy this, but you're talking so low that I can't hear.
Oh, sorry.
Right. Okay, so my take on social currency, right? So per se, someone at the bottom, they're starting out their first job. It'll be like Sainsbury's, working in the supermarket. It'll be like the social currency of per se 2, and the trades they learn there will be like customer service skills, some retail skills. The next day they go, they end up in a retail shop where sells clothes. Now that bumps you up to 3 because you're doing bigger retail and you're conversating with different kind of customers.
Interacting,
So you're building your stats up. So now you're on 3. And for some reason you work your way in that close store and you become like team leader, So now your social currency goes up to like 4 because you know your management. So now you're partial management, So then you leave that place and you've done like 4 years work, and you're at social currency of 4. So look at what each currency you have. So 2 you first got would be like £2, and then you get a second separate pound. And they'll look at the differences between how you got those currencies and what you did to get them. and then they will then differentiate that, and then you may get a slot which will then bump you up to say working in the office, so you're now at 7
Potentially, but you
currently.
might stay stagnantly. You might hit it.
Of
You
course,
might hit
yeah,
it.
yeah,
I think what we're trying to say is that interweaving of life experience and life projection of what you want and trying
yeah.
to get from that A to B. And that is your social currency. It's what you're socially trading with.
Currency is made up.
Of course it is. It's all fucking bullshit.
This is what I mean. But currency
Believe in
is
it.
made up.
You're
You
playing
can be
yourself.
whatever you want to be in this world. For
Yeah.
example, there's that not hostess. There was a fake heiress who married a billionaire because she made herself into a fake billionaire. She got taken to court and all
Yeah.
sorts. The guy she fell in love with decided to like pay all her bills.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not me saying you should all go out there and impersonate and embezzle and the rest of it. But that goes to show that your social currency is what you make it.
Yeah.
You're only as networked as your weakest link in
Yeah.
the chain.
I agree. I absolutely agreed. Rita had a question. She said, "What do venues do when they see you?" That's a good question. I can't really speak on the projection of me, but I can say that when I would hand in, if I was to hand in a proposal, what they usually got was numbers. It was always a numbers game.
Yeah, that's
So it
always
was either having a 2,000 mailing list or a DJ who, is really popular on social media, or me having done over 4, 5, 600 events. I don't even know at this point. It was always a numbers game. And that's when I was dealing with a new venue. For the most part, I was always dealing with venue owners and directors that I'd already kind of met and cultivated in my earlier career. But when dealing with new venues, it was always a numbers game.
That's the thing, and I find that I'm also learning at the same time, because as a person who wants to get into galleries or is doing that slowly but surely, I've realized one thing: knowing a gallerist is a surefire way of actually moving up. So
Basically,
not knowing the assistant necessarily, because
no.
they're trying to get to where you're
Assistants
going.
can get replaced. Managers can get replaced. Directors, founders, and CEOs don't.
This is where you want to be. The D-suite, the C-suite,
Yeah.
the D-suite is where you want to get to. Let's talk about how
Yeah.
do you talk to a director compared to how do you talk to a manager?
Absolutely.
How
Right,
does
Eduardo, I'm going to have to end our convo, if that's okay.
Okay, that's okay. Answer this
I am.
question.
I'm starving, but yeah, I can answer another question.
No, that one about how do you speak to D-suite compared to C-suite.
Oh, how do I speak to them? Honestly, I think authenticity over everything. Authenticity over everything is they either get it or they don't. Because ultimately, when I guess you kind of get to a place where you don't need to really sell yourself anymore. You get your social currency of people who have been and gone through that for you. They sell you for you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then you've already done all the hard work. That kind of work has already been done. That hard work has already been done. All they're really trying to feel or find or understand is how authentic and real you are as a person. Do you mean what you say? That's any experience I've had with a director or a CEO. They're trying to cut through the bullshit. They're trying to see if they can find any bullshit in what you're saying. So if you're speaking with no bullshit, you can actually have a real conversation. And the minute you get conversational, the job is already yours.
That's very true. Okay, George, just to wrap up, I would like to say thank you for coming and sharing your experiences.
No, thank you.
I'm going to have to chat with you afterwards about some of the stuff that you said, because I think I have an idea in mind.
You have an idea? Never.
Anyway, guys, it's been a pleasure. Stay well. Goodbye.
See ya.
Bye,
guys.
Stay on. Don't leave. just for you guys who have been following my work and whatever else I do, I would like to say the following. I've got in my link tree a link for my show. It's called Cataloging Emotions, so it's the first one. If you can't find yourself a slot in the first slot, you may be able to find a slot for another one. So I've got a show next week on Thursday called Cataloging Emotions that I've curated. Enjoy. It's in my link tree. See you later. Bye.